Training harder and more often is one of the fastest ways to stall your progress in the gym. I learned that the hard way after years of lifting and barely changing. If I could go back and talk to myself before I ever touched a barbell, I'd probably save myself years of wasted effort. Because when most people start lifting, they all make the same assumption. If I just train harder, longer and more often, I'll get results faster. That's exactly what I believed. So I trained 6, sometimes even 7 days a week, sometimes twice a day, never missed a session, and yet I was constantly sore, always tired, picking up little injuries and barely looking any different. It felt like pushing the accelerator harder while the handbrake was still on. And that's the real problem with lifting. Most people don't fail because they don't work hard. They fail because they're doing too much of the wrong things. So if I had to start again from scratch, knowing what I know now, being a personal trainer for the last 11 years and training in the gym for 13 years, I'd follow one simple idea: the minimum effective lifting framework. Not more effort, more return on effort. So let's break it down. Rule 1, fewer workouts, better progress. The first thing I'd change, I'd train less often. Sounds a little bit counterintuitive to what you might be thinking, but when I first started, I thought training 6 to 7 days a week was dedication. In reality, it was under-recovering with extra steps. The biggest progress I ever made came when I dropped to 3 to 4 high quality sessions per week. Think about this. Muscle doesn't grow in the gym. It grows when you leave it alone long enough to recover. Training every day is like checking the oven every 2 minutes and wondering why the cake won't bake. Rule 2, stop splitting muscles into tiny pieces. I wasted years on the classic bro split. So chest Mondays, back Tuesdays, arm day Wednesdays, and then sometimes legs if I could be bothered. Each muscle once per week. It does feel productive. You get a good pump on, but it's wildly inefficient for most people. But what I found is when I switched to 3 full body sessions or an upper lower split 4 times per week, progress sped up immediately. It's almost like watering a plant once a week versus a few times per week. Same volume, better growth, frequency beats novelty. And another point on this as well is I actually started to enjoy training a lot more when I was only in the gym lifting 3 days per week. 7 days per week, I lost the love for it a little bit. It was almost like I was dragging myself to the gym. I was sore a lot of the time and I didn't really enjoy being there as much. So that's one to think about. Rule 3 is heavy enough to force adaptation. For years, I lived in the 12 to 15 rep range. You get a good pump on because I thought lighter weight is safer, which obviously means more muscle. I've got a good burn and a good pump. But what I actually got was no real strength gains, no visible change or minimal visible change, and muscle grows from progressive overload, not pump chasing. That means some lower rep work in the 4 to 8 reps earlier in the session with intent to get stronger. If the signal never changes, the body never has a reason to adapt. You're just giving it the same thing over and over again, chasing the burn or the pump. Rule 4, warm up with the lift, not endless stretching. I for one used to stretch for 10 to 20 minutes before lifting and still feel stiff. I saw people doing it online, I saw people doing it in the gym, and I thought that was just what you had to do. You had to stretch before doing any training, otherwise you'd get injured. But static stretching is not a warm-up. Proper warm-ups are lighter sets of the actual exercise. It's the same movement, same pattern, just lighter load. I mean, you don't practice driving by sitting in the passenger seat. You practice driving by being in the driver's seat. Rule 5, recovery weeks aren't weakness. I ignored deload weeks for years, and I'll hold my hands up and say I still do. I thought they were for people who weren't serious and were just being pussies. Instead, I got burnout, I was getting little niggles, I was stuck, and I was getting injured more often than I wanted to. Once I started intentionally backing off every 4 to 8 weeks, give or take, depending on how my body felt, strength jumped after the recovery. A good analogy is pulling a bow back further doesn't help if the string's about to snap. Rule 6, more sets don't equate to more muscle. I thought 4 to 6 sets per exercise was hardcore. All it did was drain me. When in actual fact, the sweet spot was around 2 to 3 hard-working sets per exercise, close to failure, progressively heavier over time. Quality reps are a signal, junk volume is just noise. In other words, junk volume is just adding sets and reps onto your session when your body doesn't really need it. All you are doing is adding excess fatigue and not really growing any more muscle or getting stronger. Rule 7, knees over toes is not the enemy. I avoided letting my knees travel forward in squats and lunges, and I thought I was protecting them. Instead, I loaded my hips, my lower back, and paid for it, as a lot of people do. Your knees going over your toes is normal, as long as your feet stay flat and control is there. Blaming your knees for bad squats is like blaming the steering wheel for bad driving, when in actual fact, you were controlling it. Quick pause. If you want a simple training structure that actually applies this properly, click the link below for a completely free 7-day training program. Right, now for the mistakes people still obsess over. Rule 8. Protein timing isn't magical. I used to sprint for a protein shake the second my workout ended, but it turns out total daily protein matters far more than the 30-minute window. And this was a big one back in the early days of 2011, 2012, 2013. It's like worrying about the exact minute you water a plant while ignoring whether it gets enough water all week. Rule 9. Soreness is a terrible metric. I thought soreness meant growth. It doesn't. Soreness comes from novelty, a bit of muscle damage and inflammation. Growth comes from mechanical tension plus progression. If you're getting stronger, muscle is adapting, sore or not. Rule 10. Barbells are tools, not requirements. I believed if I wasn't barbell squatting or benching, I was wasting time. Then I coached people who couldn't use barbells because of one reason or another, and they still got stronger and muscular and dropped fat. This was a mix of dumbbells, machines, cables, and everything else. Progress comes from loading the muscle, not worshipping the barbell or the dumbbell, because it's more functional. Rule 11. Something always beats nothing. I nearly ruined a family holiday chasing the perfect workout. Turns out a 20-minute dumbbell session beats skipping training entirely. You don't need to spend hours in the gym. Consistency beats perfection every single time. Rule 12. Social media sets fake expectations. As a lot of people do, you follow physiques built on mostly genetics, drugs, filters, lighting, and people wonder why copying those workouts don't give them the same result, and I was exactly the same. So stop comparing outcomes, compare input you control. Rule 13. Separate lifting and cardio. Properly mixing intense cardio into lifting sessions kills performance. I recommend lift first, cardio after, or on separate days. Trying to sprint and lift heavy at the same time is like flooring the gas and the brake at the same time. They do not work in conjunction. They are separate things to be done at separate times of the day. Rule 14. Rest longer than you think. If you don't need 90 seconds between your sets, you probably didn't lift heavy enough. Strength requires recovery between efforts. If you're someone who's got a heavy set of bench press, 3 sets of 3 reps, close to failure, if you're only taking 90 seconds rest, I can almost guarantee you are not going to be lifting the same weight as before. If you're taking 3 to 5 minutes rest, that is completely fine, assuming building strength and muscle is your goal. And that doesn't mean to say that sometimes we don't do supersets where we take minimal rest, but for the majority of your compound lifts, take the rest. Rule 15. Combo exercises look cool, but stall progress. Squats, curls, and presses. I remember when I first started personal training around 11 years ago, I used to see some people on a BOSU doing pistol squats and trying to do bicep curls at the same time. They would say it was functional, when in reality, I used to just think, what are you doing? And in reality, combos limit load. Your legs are stronger than your arms, so train movements cleanly and individually, and progress on them individually too. You do not need to combine these. Now, the uncomfortable truth. Even if you lift perfectly, most people still don't look the way they want, because training alone doesn't control body composition. That's what I break down in this next video over here. Why lifting properly still doesn't guarantee fat loss or a lean physique. Watch that next, because it solves half of the problem. And if you want something simple and daily to keep your training and habits aligned, click the link below for the 30 ways in 30 days to stay in shape. Lift less, recover more, progress faster. That's what I wish I knew earlier.